Hello, Doctor from Candy Corn for Breakfast here to share with you my top 10 favorite horror movies. Let's get started. At number 10, we have the original Japanese Godzilla from 1954. I was a huge fan of the Godzilla franchise growing up. I own all of the Godzilla movies. I have action figures everywhere throughout my apartment, and I'm just a big fan. But the first one isn't like the rest. It's actually a very straightforward, serious horror movie. There's certain scenes in it that really hit you, and you see the horror that Godzilla actually brings with all of his destruction. I was fortunate enough to actually see it re-released in theaters, so I've seen it on the big screen and the small screen. I actually met the actor who played Godzilla in the film. It's one of my most dear memories because that man really shaped my childhood, so that's why Godzilla has to be on the list. Number 10. At number 9, we have Sam Raimi's Evil Dead from 1981. This movie is very important to me because of the production behind it, how it was so low budget and there was just so much passion to get it created. I've been wanting to be a filmmaker my whole life. Hearing about the story of creating Evil Dead and seeing the finished product and how it's become this amazing cult classic just really inspires me. You should definitely check it out, whether you've seen Ash vs. Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 2, there's nothing better than the original. At number 8, we have 2012's Cabin in the Woods. That's right, the movie that made fun of Evil Dead and all of the tropes it created is placed higher on the list, mainly for the third act that just blows everything out of the water. I think the movie is incredibly clever, it has tons of great comedy, has amazing horror, and has pretty much anything you'd ever want to see in a horror movie, all wrapped into the third act. You should definitely give it a shot. I don't want to say anything else about it, in case if you haven't. At number 7, we have 1968's Night of the Living Dead, directed by George A. Romero. That's right, the original zombie movie has to be on the top 10 list. Honestly, Dawn of the Dead should probably be on the spot instead of Night. I've just seen Night of the Living Dead more, so that's why it's on this list, because it sticks in my memory a little bit. This is one of those movies that if it's dark outside, you're alone with all the lights off, it's perfect to throw on at any time. It's one of my go-tos every October. Check it out. At number 6, we have James Wan's Saw from 2004. It's a strange movie to be so high on the list for most people, but this was really the movie that got me into horror. I watched the movie, I loved the twist, I loved the storytelling of it, and made me want to see more horror movies and explore the genre more. Wes Craven's Scream. This movie is incredibly clever, basically brought back horror and the slasher genre all in one. Kevin Williamson's script is genius in terms of deconstructing the horror tropes and making you enjoy the film whether or not you're a fan of horror. It's just people who enjoy horror will probably get a little bit more out of it. Halloween, directed by John Carpenter. If I'm gonna mention the movie that brought back the slasher genre, I have to mention the movie that created the slasher genre. Halloween is a movie dripping in suspense and an eerie atmosphere, with excellent acting by Donald Pleasence, who delivers some very terrifying lines about the nature of evil. This is actually the movie that turned me off from horror originally. I saw this a little bit too young, and I was afraid of Michael Myers around every corner, behind every closet, inside my shower, anywhere. I thought Michael Myers was gonna pop up. Now I can watch the movie perfectly fine, but back then, Michael was something that terrified me beyond anything else. So that's why this movie is number 4. Number 3, we have 1941's The Wolfman. The original werewolf movie is actually my favorite of the Universal Monster movies, but there's another one on the list that I think is a bit better in terms of production, so this one's number 3. Lon Chaney Jr. gives an incredible performance as Lawrence Talbot, one that I find very charming, endearing, and very relatable. He's a character that you really want to see succeed, so when the transformations happen and the horror of the Wolfman comes out, you really feel for Larry and he becomes a much more tragic figure. This was also the movie that introduced Claude Rains to me, who plays John Talbot, Larry's father. Claude Rains is now one of my favorite of the classic actors. He also played the Invisible Man and the Phantom of the Opera in the remake. The Wolfman is dripping in atmosphere, the forest sets are incredibly creepy, and the transformation scenes are amazing considering the times. I love the makeup effects, the acting is wonderful, and the Wolfman will always be my favorite of the monsters. Number 2, we have the other Universal movie on this list, Frankenstein, from 1931, directed by James Whale. Now, I already said that The Wolfman I find a little bit more enjoyable than Frankenstein to watch. However, I do believe that Frankenstein is the better movie, so it just edges out The Wolfman for the number 2 spot. There's really nothing to say about this movie that hasn't been said already. Boris Karloff is amazing in the role of the monster, the makeup looks incredible, he's equally tragic and terrifying. And the windmill scene in the finale of the movie is actually my favorite in all of cinema. Definitely check it out. And now for number 1. 2007's Trick or Treat, written and directed by Michael Dougherty. That's right, a modern movie takes over the Universal classics. I'm just as surprised as you are. Really, this movie is incredible. There's intertwining stories, there's amazing acting, there's beautiful practical creature effects. Sam is honestly one of the best antagonists you could ever have for a slasher film. He's adorable, he's endearing, he's scary, he's the spirit of Halloween. What more could you ask for? If you want a movie that's dripping in Halloween atmosphere, where there's Halloween in the fall season in every shot, you really can't do better with Trick or Treat. This movie is an absolute treat, something that I watch every October, and I hope it's something that you watch too. Anyway, that's it for my top 10 list. I'd just like to say these aren't what I think are the 10 best horror movies or the 10 scariest, just my personal 10 favorites. So leave a comment. What are your 10 favorite? What do you think of this list? Are there any that you're surprised about? Are there any that you think should be changed? What do you think of the order? Let me know what you think. And as always, stay spooky. Doctor out.